have not read it. We have to read it.
Okay. Okay, then read it. If everybody is there, we can start.
Shall I read it?
Yes, you can.
In the attitude of the witness, there is also a kind of sanction, but it is passive, inert, and has no kind of absoluteness about it. But if he consents entirely to uphold the sanction, has become active, even though the soul may do no more than than consent to reflect, uphold, and thereby maintain in action all the energies of Prakriti, not determining, not selecting, believing that it is God or force itself or some knowledge. Will that select and determines, and the soul only a witness and upholder and thereby giver of the sanction. Anumanta, but not the possessor, and the director of the knowledge and the will, Jata Ishvara. But if his habitually selects and rejects in what is offered to it, it determines the relativity passive has become an entirely active sanction and is on the way to be an active control.
Yeah. Okay. So he is explaining further of what he has told you earlier also in the earlier paragraph. So he has told you that when you make your mind silent and go to self, okay, there is usually it is the witness attitude. You become absolutely immobile. Your consciousness is immobile. You are outside your body mind life, and you are absolutely without any effect of the physical world. No emotion bothers you, no thought bothers you. No, your body also is acting in the physical world, but you are not affected. Now he is saying, so that is the first attitude, the witness. Then you realize a little higher or a little different experience, you realize that you are in a way connected with your body mind life. Okay, then you become the upholder. You know that your body mind life is there because your soul is entered into the body mind life. There is a connection between them, that you have become the upholder. That's a bharta. Okay, you breathe. Breathe is to support. Then you realize that since there is a connection, you yourself have given permission to the body mind life to do whatever it is doing. You become the Anumanta. Okay, these are all different attitudes which the soul can experience separately. If you are witness, you won't realize necessarily that you are Bharta. You won't realize that you are the Anumanta. You won't realize that you are the Jnata, Ishvara, and Bhokta. You will not realize all these things, but slowly, you will realize all of them. And Sri Aurobindo says you have to realize that you are everything. Okay? There's a gradation. And don't think that they are like stairs, but there's an interconnection. That's what he's saying here in this para that we have just now read. He's saying that even in the witness attitude, there is that Anumanta, principle of Anumanta, Anumati, is there because it is passive. It is like a child asks you, your child asks you, shall I do this? Asks his father. And the father is neither interested nor uninterested, but he says, okay, do what you want. It's a connection. That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying, in the attitude of the witness, there is also a kind of sanction. I'm allowing my child to do whatever he wants, although I'm not very enthusiastic about it, but it's a kind of, but it is passive. It is not active. You're not encouraging it, but it is passive. Okay, do whatever you want. Sort of inert and has no kind of absoluteness in it. Okay? Usually it is like that. Then you realize that, oh, there is a connection, and then you can take a different stance. You can become the Anumanta. That's what he's saying. But if it consents entirely to uphold, the sanction has become active. So again, the image of the father and the son is very interesting, because when the child comes and says, I want to go for the picnic, father, will you allow me? Some parents won't have. But this parent says, okay, you can go. I don't mind. I have no particular opinion on that. You can go. He is a kind of sanction, but it is passive. You can do what you want. But suppose the child says, but father, I need some money, so I need your support. Then the father can say, okay, I support you. he becomes the Hanumanta. He becomes the permission giver. Okay, I'll give you 100 rupees or whatever you want. So he's become not passively Hanumanta, but actively Hanumanta. Okay? So that's the difference between the two. So you can be a passive witness, you can be an active witness. That's what Srimad is saying. And if you are the active witness, you become the Hanumanta. Okay? Then the next step is you also become the Jnata and the Ishvara. You become the, but in the Hanumanta stage, Srimad is saying, you are not the possessor and the director of the knowledge. You only have given permission to the body, mind, life to do whatever it wants. You have given your permission to do to the child. The father says, okay, I give you the money and you do whatever you want in the picnic. I'm not bothered. But if the parent says, you must do this and you must do that in the picnic and you must not go, if you don't know swimming, don't go near the lake. Okay. So then you become the Jnata and the Ishvara. You are directing the child to do whatever he wants. Okay. I think it's very useful. The image of the child and the father is very useful because it explains these three terms. Witness, Sakshi, Hanumanta, and Jnata. Very clearly you can see the three grades. Okay. So it's not necessary to go through each one, but these are the three grades that he's talking about. I think it's clear, no? The first one, the parent agrees to what the child wants to do. Okay? Passively, not interested. I am reading a book and the child comes and says, I want to go to the picnic. Okay, go. No problem. But he says, I need the money. Then you become the upholder. You say, okay, I'll give you. Okay? But you do whatever you want that's the next one. But then he starts giving him instructions. You must not do this, you must not do that. You become the Jnata and the Ishvara. So in the using the word possessor and director of the knowledge and the will. You start teaching the child what to do and what not to do. Okay? Then you become the Jnata and the Ishvara. So that's what he's saying in this para. Okay, I won't go into each sentence because I have a slightly different text. But this is the basic idea. The three stages. Number one, Hanumanta, passive. Number two, Hanumanta, active. Number three, Jnata, Ishwar. You are controlling everything. And all these three you can experience either separately or you may experience two of them together. Okay. But finally it ends in the Jnata and the Ishwara. The complete Ishvara is not possible except in this supramental world. You become the master. You become the. But even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, you can start influencing your body, mind, life. I've given you many instances how Srimad was even curing his own body. Okay, so at that stage when he is there, he can control his body reactions. Okay, so we'll go to the next paragraph. I think it's very clear, the three steps. Huh? You have to confirm whether you understood. Hello? Nobody is reacting? Can you hear me?
Yes, Ranjana, we can hear you.
Okay. So the concept is clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
If you
it is clear.
image the father and the son, it becomes very clear. Okay. Okay. Now we go to the next one. So who will read next?
Shall I read?
Yes, do that.
Okay. This it becomes when the soul accepts its complete function as the knower, lord, and enjoyer of nature. As the knower of the soul, as the knower of the soul possesses the knowledge of the force that acts and determines, it sees the values of being, which are realizing themselves in cosmos. It is in the secret of fate. For the force that acts is self-determined by the knowledge, which is its origin and the source and standardizer of its valuation and effectuations of values. Therefore, in proportion as the soul becomes again the knower, it gets the capacity of becoming also the controller of the action, whether by spiritual force alone or by that force figuring itself in mental and physical activities. There may be in our soul life a perfect spiritual knowledge and understanding, not only of all our internal activities, but of all the unrolling of things, events, human, animal, natural activities around us, the world vision of the Rishi. This may not be attended by an active putting forth of a power upon the world, though that is seldom entirely absent. For the Rishi is not uninterested in the world or in his fellow creatures, but one with them by sympathy or by accepting all creatures as his own self in many minds and bodies. The old forest-dwelling anchorites even are described continually as busily engaged in doing good to all creatures. This can only be done in the spiritual realization, not by an effort, for effort is a diminution of freedom, but by a spiritual influence or by a spiritual mastery over the minds of men and the workings of nature, which reflects the divine effective immanence and the divine effective mastery.
I have completely lost the text. Are you sure you are reading in the correct para? Or have you skipped a para? Sunki?
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't miss the para.
Okay. How does the para begin? This it becomes, right?
Yes, this it becomes.
And how does it end?
It ends, which reflects the divine effective immanence and the divine effective mastery.
In my, it is the end with the soul and nature, because it is
Yeah,
only
exactly.
half.
Oh,
Exactly. Okay, there is missing text. Okay. So let me do one thing. I'll get the actual text because I don't have my tablet. I'll get the actual text. Just 1 minute. Okay.
So, Kiriti, your text ends where?
my text is CWSA.
It ends with what sentence?
It ends with the divine effective immanence and the divine effective mastery. That's the ending part.
Okay.
And the last sentence starts with, this can only be done.
I've got the actual text now, the real text. And just seeing 1 second. Soul and nature, 426. 426. Soul and nature, 426. Now, that para beginning from this it becomes.
Yes.
Last one para, na?
This it becomes when the soul accepts its complete function.
I've
And
got
in
it. All right. So I go through each sentence and we'll have a look. All right. This it becomes. What is this? That means not only of your inner being, but also the outer body mind life. Your consciousness is in the higher planes of consciousness. Your consciousness is not limited only to the body, but the real essential consciousness has gone out. There is a body consciousness continuing. There is a vital consciousness continuing. There is even a mental consciousness which goes on. Thoughts go on, but they are felt only as small ripples on the surface of your being. Okay, so this it becomes, that means you become the Lord and Master. When the soul accepts its complete function as a knower, Lord, and enjoyer of nature. So now it is enjoyer of nature. Enjoyer of nature is a bhokta. So you start enjoying everything. Okay, enjoyer of nature. Nature which was earlier giving you pleasant and unpleasant experiences, now everything becomes pleasant to you. Okay. So when you are in that consciousness of the bhokta, nothing can be unpleasant for you. Everything becomes pleasant. Okay. Even those things which you did not like now, you start liking. In fact, Sri Aurobindo goes in other places, he says, even failure and error, a failure, you can enjoy even the failures. There is an enjoyment in the struggle. As the knower, the soul possesses the knowledge of the force. Now note that, the knowledge of the force. At our level, our force is different and our knowledge is different. Knowledge corresponds to the mind and the force corresponds to the vital. And usually, there is not much connection between the two. Usually, the vital controls the mind at our level. But at that level that Sri Aurobindo is speaking about, the soul, not the mind, but the soul, the mental Purusha, controls the vital fully. Okay? That acts and determines. It sees the values of being which are realizing themselves in the cosmos. It is the secret of fate. Now, that's an interesting sentence. It's the secret of fate. In other words, you have at the lowest level of your body, mind, life, there is fixity of fate. Okay? Remember the gradation. If you remember the gradation, there will be no problem at all. And in the beginning, when your soul is completely identified with body, mind, life, your consciousness, there is fixity of fate. Okay? The law of karma, causality, absolutely works without error. But when your soul escapes from the body, mind, life, the first signs of liberty come in, but there is no power. Then as you keep climbing higher and higher, you become the master of your own destiny. That means the law of karma, the causality, starts becoming less and less. This is what he's talking about, the secret of fate. In other words, at the lowest level, when you are identified with your body, mind, life, there is fixity of fate. Karma, as I say, it's all written on your forehead. You are subject to that. But the moment your soul comes out of the house, okay, you're not subject to the atmosphere of the house at all. You are now start becoming free. So the secret of fate is, the higher you go, the more free you become. And not only free, but you start becoming master of yourself. Okay, you become Swarat and Samrat. You can actually start dictating terms in the physical world. That's what he's saying. That's the secret of fate. So what is the secret of fate? The gradation of freedom or slavery, upwards more and more free, downwards more and more slavery. Okay, this is the secret of fate. Okay, clear? That's why I keep repeating that the gradation is so important. If you understand the gradation, many things become clear. People say, oh, destiny is there, you can't change destiny. Yes, you can, provided you identify yourself with your soul. But even when you identify with your soul at the lower spiritual levels, there is still a freedom is there, but no power to do the lower, to control the lower. But you can control the lower. If you keep going higher and higher, more and more control comes. And actually, at the highest level, your consciousness, if it goes to the highest level, what does it become? It becomes the divine. And the divine is controller of full everything. Okay? So that's what it means. Secret of fate. Now it's clear, the secret of it. The higher you go, the more you understand the secret of it. For the force that acts is itself determined by the knowledge. Chit controls the Shakti. That's what he's saying. At our level, Chit does not control the Shakti. It is Shakti, the vital, which controls the mind 90% of the time, which is its origin and source and standardizer of its valuations and effectuation of values. There also values go on changing. This also he has explained, and we'll just very brief discussion about what the values are. In the physical world, the values are physical. Whatever happens physically to you, there are values. But when you go to the, if you are identified with your body, mind, life, the values are vital and sensational. Your sensations are true to you. Those are the values. Okay? Whatever I feel with my sensation, that is valuable. That is the correct. That is available. That is that is valid for me. Okay, but when you go to the mind, the values start changing. The experience, the example that Sriranga gives, I'll give you. Okay, he says that normally when you are a normal man, you look at the east, the sun is rising. For you, the sun is going up. It's a sensation. Your senses are giving you the knowledge that the sun is rising. It is going up. Okay, but that's a value for you. It is true for you. But the moment you start looking at it from a mental angle and start analyzing and remain more in the mind, and let me see whether this is right or wrong. What is it? Then you go to the mental level, you realize that your sense values are wrong. Very clear, na? That's what happened in Europe. The big quarrel between the church and Tycho Brahe and Galileo and the others. Okay, so that is what Sriranga is talking about. So then, if you go from the mental level to the spiritual level, again the values change. You start seeing things in a different way. So your values go on changing. First of all, there are sensational values, then there are mental values, then there are spiritual values, and in spiritual values, there is no morality. Morality completely disappears. Then when you go to the supramental level, totally all values are negated. There are no values. The divine is completely free to do what he wants. Okay, so this is what Sriranga is saying, secret of fate. But the force that acts is itself determined by the knowledge. Chit controls Shakti, which is its origin and the source and standardizer of its valuations and effectuations of values. We act according to our values. That's the effectuation of the value. Therefore, in proportion as the soul becomes again the knower, it gets the capacity of becoming also the controller of the action, whether by spiritual force alone or by that force figuring itself in mental and physical activities. So he is saying, if you go to the higher levels of consciousness, you can use spiritual force, but you can also use mental force and even physical force. Your actions will be in proportion, in complete harmony with the knowledge that you have. There may be in our soul life a perfect spiritual knowledge and understanding, not only of all our internal activities, but of all the unrolling of things, events, human, animal, natural activities around us, the world vision of the Rishi. I don't have that Rishi thing at all in my other thing, but here it is there. So, again, so very clear what he's saying. Not only you become the master of yourself, but you start becoming also the master of the external activities. Using the words, unknown things, human, animal, natural activities. Natural activities, activities of nature around us. The world vision of the Rishi. So I told you, Rishi, the definition is that he can see things. Okay. I gave you once the example of how, if you remember, that was very interesting because I discovered what was the meaning of Rishi when it was explained to me by Temiben. Okay, I told you. She didn't explain to me, but it was a very interesting thing. If you remember the story, I'll tell you, but otherwise, I'll repeat the story if you don't remember. Ramakrishna is calling Bankim Chandra Chatterjee a horrible fellow. He's saying he's thinking only of sex and money, nothing else. But Sriranga is calling Bankim Chandra Chatterjee a rishi. Is there a contradiction between these two things? No, there isn't. And that is exactly the point. Sriranga is saying that Bankim Chandra Chatterjee is
Gangadhar, we are not being able to
capable
hear.
of producing a song. So you can't hear me. Now you can?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, I'm nearer. Okay, I'll keep the phone very near to myself. So I told you that this is a very interesting story because you must understand what is a rishi. A rishi outwardly may be very, very ordinary man. Okay, he may be a very ordinary man, but he can see things. Okay, and when he wrote this Bande Mataram, people told him that what the hell have you written? It's a horrible song. It's a half Bengali, half Sanskrit. Vande Mataram is very clearly Sanskrit. And Tumi Vidya, Tumi Dharmo, Tumi Riti, Tumi Mormo, that is all Bengali. Okay. Tomari, Pratima, Gori, okay, all Bengali. So they said, what is it? He says, you people don't understand. One day, entire country will be singing this song. And that was in the beginning. And that's exactly what happened. So Sri Aurobindo calls him a rishi. Then I was very puzzled as to how a rishi can be so imperfect and so. Then that example of the Charupada. Charupada was the uncle of Pranavda, and he was in charge of the reception service. And he was in many ways quite crude in his ways. Okay, I can bring you many examples, but need not. He was very crude in many of his ways. His speech also is very crude. And Nolida called him a rishi. And I thought, what the hell is he talking about? How can a rishi be talking all this nonsense? Okay. But then he told me a story which made me understand what is a rishi. He said that she was in a very special condition and she could see, it was a spiritual experience for her, and she was seeing flames coming out of her head. Okay. She felt the flames coming out of her head. And when she walked into the tea room in Golconda, Charupada, who was sitting there, told her, oh, you are like a rishi. Like you are like a rishi, you are like a yogini, he said. So he could see that. Then I understood what is rishi. The one who is, it doesn't matter what he is in his outer nature. But if you are in your inner being, you are if you are capable of seeing the subtle things, then you are a rishi. So this is what Sendra is saying here. But the rishi can be at a physical level. He can be at a world vision of the rishi. The rishi can see the whole world and understand what it's all about. Okay? Clear? The world vision of the rishi. This may not be attended by the active putting forth of power upon the world. Okay? Now this is also interesting. Sendra is saying a rishi need not necessarily try to control events in the physical world. And that again explains Durvasa. If you remember Durvasa, how he used to get angry, but he's a rishi. Okay, he used to get angry. He is not making any effort to control things in the physical world. That's what Srimati is saying. This may not be attended by an active putting forth of power upon the world, though that is seldom entirely absent. Absolutely no power is not real, is not fact if you are a rishi. Okay, some amount of power is always there. But the rishi is not uninterested in the world or in his fellow creatures, but one with them by sympathy or by accepting all creatures as his own self in many minds and bodies. This is the cosmic consciousness. By accepting all creatures as his own self in many minds and bodies. Everybody is part of you. That's a cosmic consciousness. So, the old forest-dwelling anchorites even are described continually as busily engaged in doing good to all creatures. Doing good to all creatures is in the Gita. Several times it repeats this. Okay, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. They are engaged in the good of all creatures. Okay? This can only be done in the spiritual realization, not by an effort. For effort is a diminution of freedom. Very interesting. If you are totally free, you have the power. But if you are making an effort, it means that freedom is not full. You are making an effort. So very interesting phrase. For effort is a diminution of freedom. But by spiritual influence or by spiritual mastery over the minds of men and works of nature. Not only you can influence people, but you can also influence nature, even the inanimate things. Okay? You can change the course of history. I told you in the record of yoga, Sri Aurobindo is trying first the minds of men, then the workings of nature. Okay, he was trying it on birds, and finally even in effects in the physical world. So minds of men, in one place he says that there is a man walking, he is in the guest house. Okay, the guest house which is there adjacent to the playground. He's sitting there, and from his window he's seeing down in the road one man is going he comes to the crossroads and he stops. Now Sri Aurobindo wills him, and he's testing his own power. Okay, he's willing him to go left or right. He is not imposing himself. Okay, he's just making a movement of will, and man obeys what he has been told to do. In other words, we are constantly at our level being controlled by forces of which we are not conscious at all. Okay, so and the man goes. So this is the first experiment that Sri Aurobindo did. Second experiment with birds, because their capacity to receive, maybe, I don't know, but he tried with birds. There was one bird sitting on the parapet of the terrace, and he willed it to go to a particular branch on the tree. First of all, it didn't go. It went somewhere else, and finally it went. In other words, the power is not absolutely perfect yet. Later on, he could make it more perfect, and whatever the command was, that crow would obey the command. Okay. Then finally, he comes to events in the physical world, which is the most difficult. Okay. Your power over the mind plane is easier. The power over the physical, the vital plane is more difficult because there's more density there. And it's the most difficult in the physical world because it is rigid. It does not, it has its own laws. It will not obey things. So that's the most difficult. But even there, he was trying. He was influencing the Irish Revolution. He was influencing Turkey. Okay. Turkey has actually gone back to its old ways of Islamic Shariat and all. But at one time, it became absolutely a modern democratic nation. That was through Kemal Atatürk. Okay. Sri Aurobindo has mentioned that. And he was also influencing many other events. Not all events, but many events he was influencing. Okay. So this is what he's saying. So by spiritual influence or by spiritual mastery over the minds of men and the workings of nature, which reflects the divine effective immanence and the divine effective mastery. Divine effective immanence is in the physical world, the divine is present in the physical world. And at the highest level, you have effective mastery, a mastery which can have effects in the physical world. Okay? We have got time. We can read the next one. There is no loss of freedom. Shall we read? No response? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So,
Hello. Rangada, I have an absolutely different paragraph.
Yeah, mine is also starts with nor can it do.
My
Nor
paragraph
can it-
starts with Purusha and Prakriti.
Oh, that's the last one in my last paragraph in my book. Langada is not there.
No, he's very much there. He's okay.
Gitanjali, I cannot hear you, Gitanjali.
Hello, Rangada.
Yeah, we cannot hear.
there is a break. Huh? Now you can hear me, I hope.
Yes, we can hear you now.
There is a break. Yeah, there is a break on the internet. Okay. So if Gitanjali is there, she can read. There is no loss of freedom. We are on the last two paragraphs.
Gitanjali
Shall I
has
read?
mic problem. Yes.
Then shall I read?
Yeah.
There is no loss of freedom, no descent into an ignorant attachment. The man free in his soul is aware that the divine is the lord of the action of nature, that Maya is his knowledge, will determining and affecting all. That force is the will side of the double divine power, in which knowledge is always present and effectual. He is aware of himself also. Even individually as a center of the divine existence, a portion of the Lord, the Gita expresses it, controlling so far the action of nature which he views, upholds, sanctions, enjoys, knows, and by the determinative power of knowledge controls, and when the universalizes himself, his knowledge reflects only the divine knowledge. His will effectuates only the divine will. He enjoys only the divine delight and not an ignorant personal satisfaction. Thus, the Purusha preserves its freedom in its possession, renunciation of limited personality, even in its representative enjoyment and delight of cosmic being. It has taken up fully in the higher voice the true relations of the soul and nature. My paragraph ends here.
Yeah, that's right. It ends for everybody in the CW essay. That's right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Uh,
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, okay.
Rangada, in my book, there is another paragraph before the part
Yeah.
right now that nor
Even-
can it do.
Yes, even mine has another paragraph before it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
that's
paragraph-
it. Because there's a difference in the two texts. No? That's why I'm reading now the latest one. And what was read just now, what Shilpa read is the CW essay.
But I think
Collected
the one which is which Sunki and I have is very, very important.
Yes,
very
this
Okay.
is about
paragraph.
Bhokta.
Yeah.
This is about Bhokta. So
I think that goes to the next one. So which is the one that you have and which the others don't have? Tell me. Read the beginning of the paragraph.
Nor can it do this without becoming the active enjoyer, Bhokta.
So that we don't have. I don't have.
Okay, I'll have to look very carefully. I don't know. Oh, yes, yes. Even I have a small para. Yes, yes, you are right. We missed that para. Oh, we missed it. Okay. So, Gitanjali,
Yes.
you read that. Okay.
Nor,
I made the mistake. Yeah, I made the mistake.
nor can it do this without becoming the active enjoyer, Bhokta. In the lower being, the enjoyment is of twofold kind, positive and negative, which in the electricity of sensation translates itself into joy and suffering. But in the higher, it is an actively equal enjoyment of the divine delight in self manifestation. That enjoyment again may be limited to a silent spiritual delight or an integral divine joy, possessing all things around us and all activities of all parts of our being.
Yes, yes. This is a very important para. And there are many grades. So he is going to tell. Nor can it do this without becoming the active enjoyer, bhokta. Not only the passive enjoyer, but the active. He explained to you what is the passive enjoyer afterwards. Okay. So do what? Become master of the physical world. So when you become master of the physical world, you automatically, you can think of it in two ways. You become also the enjoyer of everything. You have full power over the, if you have power only, you can control the world. And if you have the full power, naturally, what you have created, you enjoy what you do. So that's what he's saying. Nor can it do this. That means become master without becoming the active enjoyer, bhokta. In the lower being means our body, mind, life. The enjoyment is of a twofold kind, positive and negative. Positive enjoyment, pleasure. Negative enjoyment, yeah, you have to read it that way. Negative enjoyment, pain and suffering. Okay, which is the electricity of sensation translates itself into joy and suffering. He's explaining. But in the higher, it's an actively equal enjoyment of the divine delight in self-manifestation. The self-manifestation is the universe and the individual. Okay, so you start equally enjoying everything without any discrimination. Everything becomes enjoyable. That enjoyment again may be limited to a silent spiritual delight. It can be at a very low key, it can be just a silent happiness for everything. Or an integral divine joy possessing all things around us and all activities of all parts of our being. Okay. In other words, there's a gradation of a very calm and peaceful enjoyment, but there's also a very strong enjoyment, and which is also like Raudra. Okay. I'm saying this because in the record of yoga, Sri Aurobindo speaks of many enjoyments. Okay? He speaks of Kamananda, the body enjoyment. He speaks of Vaidyutananda, electric enjoyment. It comes like an electric shock. That also is enjoyment. Okay? Raudrananda, intense. Rudra is the violent aspect of Shiva. Okay, that also enjoyment can be there. Very violent enjoyment, and there can also be a Tivrananda, Tivra sharp. So many different types of enjoyment are there. That's why he's telling you only the last two. He's telling you integral enjoyment, possessing all things around us in the physical world and all activities of all the parts of our being. In fact, enjoyment within and enjoyment without in the physical world. Not only psychological enjoyment, but also physical enjoyment in the physical world. That's what he's saying. So, 8:35. And we read the, we missed that para. It was my mistake. I missed it. Okay. So, shall we stop here today? Next time we can finish the last two paras. I think there'll be just enough time for that. What is the time now? I think my watch is 8:35.
Yeah, it's 8:35.
Yeah. So then I think in 5 minutes we can't do it, so we'll stop today. Okay?
Okay.
Everybody, have a nice day.